Today I want to look at converting an indicator from Tradingview to MetaTrader. This is something I get asked from time to time. There is no simple tool or technique for doing this. It's really just a matter of reading the code and rewriting it for MetaTrader. So today I'm going to go through a simple indicator from Tradingview and convert that to MetaTrader. This video is for MetaTrader 4. I have the same video also for MetaTrader 5, and I'll leave a link in the description to that. You may also find that some of the video in here is the same for MetaTrader 4 and 5. That's because where it is the same, I've simply copied the video between the two. So this is Tradingview on screen, and I'm going to add an indicator to this. The indicator I've chosen for today is the SSL channel indicator. I've chosen this because it is a relatively simple indicator, so I don't need to worry too much about describing how the indicator works or what it does. I can concentrate on just the code because it will be enough just converting the code to MetaTrader. I came across this indicator referenced from some other video as part of a trading strategy that they have, and so I'll just show how I get this. On the Tradingview, I just go to indicators and I'll search for SSL channel, and there is the SSL channel they used. So that's now added to the chart, and you can see here that it has two lines. They oscillate around depending whether the price is going up or down. So there's one line below the price, or now it moves above, and the other line swaps. To see the code for this, I can go down here and click Pine Editor, and I'll just expand that. And you can see this is the entirety of the code. So it's actually quite a simple piece of code. So that's what I'm going to be concentrating on. What I'm going to do now, rather than stick to this Tradingview screen, I'm going to copy all of this code and create the indicator in MetaTrader, and then I'm going to paste this into a comment there so that I have it all in one place as I'm writing the MetaTrader indicator. Now I'm in the MetaTrader 4 editor. I've simply used the wizard to create my SSL channel indicator, but then I've done my usual reformatting. I've changed the way this initial comment is set up. I've changed some of the spacing around here, and I've removed a lot of the internal comments. But other than that, it has the opening comment, property strict for MetaTrader 4, the copyright link and version. They were all inserted by the wizard, and indicator chart window because this indicator does go in the main chart. Now I've added a small comment block here, and I'm just going to paste in, as I said, the Tradingview code. I might just put that in a little. So let's work through this code to begin with. This study, that's simply a setup code, much like the properties here that we have for MetaTrader 4. There's an input here, period equals input, title equals period, default value equals 10. And I think that line is actually a mistake, because then there's this next line, length equals input, title period, default value 10. And changing this on the actual inputs to this indicator does nothing, where changing this actually does change. So I think that line is left over as part of the development and shouldn't be there. So we're only concentrating on this. This is simply an input statement. This is the prompt for the input, and here's the default value. So we know how to do those. I can set that up fairly easily. In fact, let's just do that one now. So for MetaTrader, it's an input and it's an integer, and my variable name, I'm going to be calling that IMP period, where in the Tradingview code it's called len. Here's the default value 10, and this after the comment will be the prompt that appears on screen, so /period. So then there are these two values, SMA high equals SMA. This is the internal indicator for a simple moving average on Tradingview, and the SMA low is also SMA. The SMA high is using the high price, and the SMA low is using the low price for len, which is the number of specified periods. This all happens within a loop automatically in Tradingview. I'm going to have to write that loop, as you often see, but I'll just go down now and write the loop inside. Here we go, inside this on calculate. So first, I need to make sure that there are enough rates available. So rates total tells me how many. It's called rates total. It's actually how many bars are available. And each bar, of course, contains various rates. So this tells me how many bars are available in total, and prev calculated tells me how many I have already processed in the previous loop. So I don't want to do anything until I have at least enough rates to match the INP period here. So now it's very unlikely that I'm only going to have 10 rates available, but just in case, I will simply exit this at that point. And I need to return a value, so I'm going to return 0. So that 0, you see that the return here is typically rates total, which comes back next time in prev calculated. If I return 0, then it will say that I've previously calculated nothing, so I'm effectively restarting each time until I have enough rates. Now I'm going to have to loop through all of the bars to calculate this value for each bar. So what I'm going to do is set up a value that tells me how many bars I need to loop through. Okay, let me just wrap that around a little bit so it's easier to see. So I'm using the variable count to tell me how many bars I need to calculate. What I'm saying here, if prev calculated equals 0, that means that I haven't previously returned a number of bars that are already calculated. And in that case, I'm starting at the beginning. So then I'm going to process all of the bars except for this INP period and 1. So rates total minus INP period minus 1. If prev calculated is greater than 0, it means I've already processed some bars, so I only want to process the remaining bars. So that would be rates total minus prev calculated. But remember that bar 0 keeps changing, and when I do tick over to the next bar, bar 1 will have the last value that was calculated for it, but that may not be the closing price. So I want to recalculate that as well. So just by adding this +1, it forces bar 0 to be recalculated every time, and if I have moved over to a new bar, it will do a one-time recalculation of bar number 1 as well. So count is the number of bars that I'm going to process. So I have a for loop here for int I equals count, the number of bars that I'm going to process, while I is greater than or equal to 0, I minus minus. And I think I actually want to say count minus 1. So count minus 1, because count is the number of bars that I have, but obviously they're 0 indexed, so I need to begin at count minus 1. So now to begin getting the values, as we have here, there's an SMA high and an SMA low. So I'm just going to grab those. I'm just going to call them high and low. Now I can just copy that for low, because everything is the same except. All right, so what this does, IMA is the inbuilt moving average function. Symbol bracket bracket is the current chart symbol. Period bracket bracket is the current chart period. INP period is the number of bars that I'm going to use in the calculation. 0 is a shift argument that I don't use, so that's 0. The mode underscore SMA, I'm using a simple moving average based on the high price, and I want the value back for bar number I. And for the second line, I want to use the low price for bar number I. So that takes care of matching up for these two lines from the Tradingview indicator. Now I haven't set up any of the indicator buffers here yet, and I'll need to do that now because they're going to be used in these next few lines. So indicator buffers are a series of double values that are matched then to where these lines or indicators are drawn on the screen. This indicator, you can see, has an SSL down, so that's actually one of the things drawn. You saw there were two lines on screen on the Tradingview screen. There's an SSL down and an SSL up. Those names are actually a bit misleading, so I might change them, but those are the two indicators. But there's also this HLV. HLV, he's saying here, is equal to close is greater than the SMA high, then it gets a value of 1. If close is less than the SMA low, then it gets a value of -1. And if not, it gets this HLV1. So what you can see here, here's a variable HLV, and here is the same variable name with an index after it as you would for MetaTrader, where you've got an indexed array. In Tradingview, using the simple variable defaults to index number 0. So this is the same as saying HLV 0. What he's then saying in this code is that the value of this HLV 0 is going to be the same as the value for HLV 1 if neither of these two conditions are met. So this is a fairly standard channel type indicator. He's saying if the price moves past one side of the channel, then do some kind of change, and if the price is just remaining inside the channel, then use the value from before. So although this HLV doesn't appear on screen as any kind of line, it is still a buffer that needs to be calculated because we want to be able to refer to the value on the bar before. SSL down, this is the same thing. He's just got the value SSL down here, but that is the same as saying SSL down bracket 0. Remember, this is looping through. And in fact, when I've said these are 0, I've a little bit misleading. In Tradingview, I said that it will automatically do these loops for you, which means that at each loop, Tradingview is effectively saying you are at bar number 0, and then it moves to the next bar 0 and the next bar 0. Unlike MetaTrader, where we're looking back at bar number I. So Tradingview is kind of hiding the future bars from you as you go through these loops. So SSL down, the current bar, is being set based on this HLV, which is also the HLV for the current bar. SSL up is the same thing. So I'm going to have 3 buffers in my indicator. I'm going to have the down buffer, the up buffer, and the HLV buffer. So that means I have 3 indicator buffers. I think if I go back here, he's saying that down is red and up is lime. So call down buffer number 1. So indicator color 1. I'm going to make this one white. Okay. And then number 3, that's this HLV. I don't want to show that, so I'm not going to put anything there. I'm going to make these solid lines. I think that's all I actually need. I can add more properties to these if I want to, but I think that's enough to just display them. Now I also need buffers for these 3, and he's called them down, up, and HLV, so I'm going to call them the same just to begin with. I probably change these later because I don't like those. Okay. So I've got the buffers, I have the indicators set. I need to associate those buffers with the indicators, and I do that in onInit. With set index buffer, and I choose the buffer number. So these numbers now are 0 based, where up here these are 1 based. I have no idea why, but that's the way it is. So buffer number 0 will be the buffer down. And I do need to create an index buffer. Even though I'm not displaying it, I need to create a buffer or an association with this buffer HLV. Okay, where am I now? I've created 3 index buffers. I've created the 3 arrays to match to those buffers. I've said that I have 3 buffers. I've created the settings for those buffers. I think that will do. So the last thing I really need to do then is just assign values into these buffers, and that is where this code comes from, the HLV, the previous value. So In Tradingview, it's just being assigned an NA as a default. I'm not going to worry about that. I can just go through this code and then I can assign the SSL down and the SSL up in the same way. So first the HLV. For position number I, so in MetaTrader we have to indicate which position we're talking about, where in TradingView it's always working on the current position, and then as it moves to the next bar it moves on. So close I. In fact, let me just copy this line down so that you can see what I'm doing. I'll copy these 3 lines down. I'll have to remember to delete them when I'm finished, but so here he has HLV equals closes greater than high, then it's a 1, closes greater than or closes less than low, then a -1. Otherwise, it's the value from the bar before. So close in this case is an array. Here it is. It's passed into the function, so that already has the closing prices. So if close 1 is greater than high, which is my variable here. Okay, so that line duplicates this. If close is greater than the high, then it has a value of 1. If close is less than the low, then a value is -1. And if not, then it's the value from the bar before, I plus 1. And then I just need to associate those down and up. So the down buffer, SSL down, if the HLV, this buffer HLV is less than 0, then high, and if not, then low. And buffer up I, very similar. Get rid of those lines. I think that does it. Let me just see if I can compile this. Look for compile errors. No errors there. All right, let's just jump back to MetaTrader 4 and see if that has worked, and then I'll come back and do a final walkthrough of this code. All right, MetaTrader 4, I'm just going to expand that a little, zoom in. And now if I drag this SSL channel onto the screen, I have period 10. Okay, and there it is. Let me hide the candles just to make it a little easier to see. So we can see there I've got the lime moving up and down and the white line that crosses that. And this indicator is entirely based on whether the candle has closed. So we can see here, let's find a good place. Here's one. The lime, which I think is the down, is at the top at this point, and then the bar closes above that, and so it switches to be below, and then as soon as there's a candle that closes below, it switches to be above. So that's all this indicator is really doing. It's switching these 2 lines above and below depending whether a candle has closed above. And you can then see through this entire trend, candles may close inside the channel, but nothing has closed below the channel, and so this effectively is a support line in an uptrend and a resistance line in a downtrend. I'm not quite sure what to call that. I would probably call that the trailing line, and this would be the leading line. Now if I go to view on the data window, so in the data window I can see I've got SSL channel value 2 and value 3. I want to set those names to be something, and although I disagree with it, the names that are from the TradingView are up and down, so I'm going to set these 2 to up and down. But this one, this has that HLV, and I really don't want to see that at all because that's just an internal value, has no meaning. So I'm going to hide that and change these 2 to be the up and the, or down and the up, I think they were. So to change those, it's the set index label function. and 0 is down. One was up. And 2 I don't want to show at all, so that becomes null. Let's recompile. Go back to MetaTrader. And now you can see the name is down, up, and the third is simply not there. And if I just go to this point, for example, 98457, that's the up, right? So the lime is the down, and at that point it is 97903. Yes. So there you go. That is the conversion of that indicator into MetaTrader. Let's just look again at what this does. Study is simply naming and indicating how this appears on the chart. So we're putting this on the main chart and it just has a name. This line appears to be a mistake left over from an earlier version. So what we then have is an input, and there is only one input on this particular indicator. There is the title period, which you can do in MetaTrader 4 by putting a comment in line after the input statement, and there's the default value, which is 10. All of this happens inside the loop, so this matches up with the MetaTrader loop here. So you have to write the MetaTrader loop, but then each value here is effectively an array, but by not including the brackets, you're defaulting to whichever position on the indicator you're currently calculating. SMA high is just a value and SMA low are just values, and he's getting those from the simple moving average high for len number of periods, and this will by default get the value for the bar currently being processed. So remember, we're in a loop here, so whichever bar we're currently looping through, this gets the simple moving average for that bar. And then these are the buffers: HLV, SSL down, and SSL up. So simple calculations. Close is the array of closing prices, but again, no need to put the brackets for Tradingview if you're looking at the close price for the current bar, where in MetaTrader you do. After all of that is done, then there are these plot statements. In MetaTrader, simply by putting the values into the arrays and having already associated those arrays with indicators on screen, then you don't need to do any more. Where in Tradingview, there's this plot statement and you're simply saying, I'm going to plot the SSL down and how it's being plotted, line with 2, color red. So that's the same effectively as the MetaTrader version of set index buffer and the various other things you can set around an index. So as I said, very simple indicator. It is an interesting indicator to look at. It does tend to highlight trends for you. You do get, let me see if I'll just close that up. It can get a little choppy, so you can see it changes here and back again very quickly. But if you watch for that sort of thing, and that's typically associated with a change, then maybe it's a useful indicator for you. But the main point here is how you can read that Tradingview code and write that as a MetaTrader indicator. Hope it's been useful for you, and until next time, thank you for watching.